Okay, so I'm going to be honest with you. I've been a developer for a decade or so, maybe even 15 years. But throughout my journey as being a developer, I've had a lot of ups and a lot of downs, a lot of successes and a lot of failures and frustration. The reason why I'm sharing this with you is because as part of my channel and as part of creating this video, I am trying to create content to help you as the viewer and so that you are not alone in this entire journey. Now in this video, I'm going to share two things with you, and it kind of aligns with being a good to great developer or being a beginner and moving to a pro developer. And the two things are, why should you use Bootstrap, and specifically, why should you use Bootstrap Variables? And the second thing is I'm actually going to show you how to properly install Bootstrap on your local development environment. But also, I'm going to show you how to use variables so that we can go after that super lean coding. Okay, so before we jump into it, quick thing. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe button if you like my content. I truly appreciate that. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I post videos like this on a weekly, monthly, daily basis where I show you how to properly design and develop a website. So even if you're a beginner in development or a beginner as a designer or even a pro as a designer or a developer, you can definitely get some benefit out of liking and subscribing to my YouTube channel. Now, the reason why I created this video is because I want to show you how to properly install Bootstrap and how to manipulate or configure the variables of Bootstrap itself. I feel like there's a lot of developers out there that maybe skip this part or maybe don't even use the variable system at all. I know I did in the beginning, but at the end of the day, we need to try and develop a website that can actually load fast. And the only way that we can get a website to load fast is we need to have a small physical footprint. The actual file size of the website should be quite small. And this is why Bootstrap Variables and manipulating Bootstrap to get to the actual design that you want is so critical for proper development. The other reason why I also wanted to create this video is because of search engine optimization. A lot of times when we design and develop a website, SEO or search engine optimization is always an afterthought. But when you develop a website properly from the get-go, meaning you develop it super lean, your chances of creating a great website that actually ranks well is quite significant. Now, with that said, here are 4 reasons why we should use the Bootstrap variable system. Number 1, we want to focus on lean development. As I said earlier, the smaller the footprint of the website, the better. Not only for loading purposes, but also for search engine optimization purposes. Now, you'll notice that I said lean development, and the reason I said that is because the smaller the CSS compiled file, the better we are, the smaller the footprint once again. The second reason why we want to use Bootstrap variables is because we don't want to add, we just want to modify. See it this way. Bootstrap variables and the Bootstrap system is already, everything is built. All the typographies and all the colors and all the components, everything is already built. We just need to go and modify it and tweak it a little bit to look exactly like how design wants it to look like. The third reason is super easy maintenance. Once a website is fully developed, it is quite easy to go back and modify something. Let's say you want to change a color, or let's say you want to change a font size. It's easy to do that with Bootstrap Variables. You literally just go into your variable folder and you quickly change one thing and it applies to the entire website. Now, the fourth reason is rapid development. Now, when I say rapid development, I mean that this will significantly speed up your development process. So as a front-end developer, you always want to make sure that you optimize your personal time. And using Bootstrap or Bootstrap Variables, you can really optimize your time, speed up things. And by the way, you can also use stuff like Gulp, Docker, or any type of task manager to also speed up your development process. At the end of the day, you want to optimize everything. You want to make sure that when you do something, you want to do it at a minimal cost towards your time. Now, just a quick thing, if you don't know what Bootstrap variables are, it is essentially predefined variables. As I said earlier, you can literally change font sizes of headings or paragraphs at one location. You can even change colors, primary colors, secondary colors, anything you can change in one file location. So it makes it super easy and it makes it super efficient as a front-end developer. Hey, so just a quick side note, this video is part of a larger video where I show you how to develop a website from start to finish. And we are using things like Python, Docker, Flask, Gulp, Webpack, all those good things. And I'm showing it slowly how to create it and how to develop a website from start to finish. I'm sharing this with you because in the description below, I have the link to that video. Have a look at it. And there's another video in the description below as well, where I show you how to design a website from start to finish in Figma using auto layout and all that kind of good stuff. You can definitely benefit from it. Have a look at it. Make sure to check that out as well. We're going to look at how to install Bootstrap using Node modules onto your local GitHub repository or your local dev environment. So the first thing I want you to do is navigate over to the Bootstrap website. Now, when you're at the Bootstrap website, make sure to navigate to the Documents section. So clicking Docs at the top. Once you've done that, on the left-hand side, navigate over to Downloads. Now, when you're on the Downloads page, you're going to notice a few things. First, you can download the compiled CSS and JS files. However, for what we're trying to do, we're definitely going to avoid this part. Second, you can also install the source files or download the source files. That's one way of doing it. However, to maintain a project in the future, you want to avoid downloading any type of files. What we are going to use when you scroll down is use the npm install bootstrap 5.3.2. So with that, I am going to copy this code and we're going to use this code to download Bootstrap to our project. So navigating back and navigating to the actual terminal that we have, we are going to paste it. And to paste it into the terminal, we're just going to right click and we're going to hit enter. Make sure that you are located on the root directory of your project before hitting enter. Once you've done that, you're going to notice that it's going to start installing Bootstrap for you. Once that's done and we open up our Node modules, we're going to scroll down and we're going to look for Bootstrap. As I'm scrolling down, I've noticed that Bootstrap is right here. And when I open that up, we're going to notice that you have all the files required to work with Bootstrap in general. So when I open up SCSS, you'll notice that we have all the files there. Now, this is going to be important because as we are going to modify the variables of Bootstrap going throughout this project, we are constantly going to go back and forth between this variables files and our actual files. Now with this done, we are going to navigate back to the Bootstrap website because there's a few things that we need to add in our HTML as well as our main SCSS. So with that, I'm going to navigate over to Customize and Sass. When you navigate over to this page, you're going to notice a few things. It's going to show you the file structure, which we'll cover here in a bit, but it's also going to show you how to properly import Bootstrap. Now you have two options. Option one is you can physically drop the entire Bootstrap file and add your variables above, or option two, and having more full control, would be doing it this way. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this because this is the way that I usually like to do it. You're also going to notice in the documentation, they kind of suggest that you go for option two by saying we encourage the latter. It just gives you more full control. All right, so with that, we're going to navigate back to Visual Studio. And with Visual Studio open, we are going to start modifying our main SCSS file. So to do that, we're going to minimize our entire Node modules. Now, there is quite a lot of modules that we've already installed, so I'm just going to move it right up. And we're going to minimize this. We're going to go to our SCSS folder and click on our main SCSS. So I already have this open because in the previous part of the video, we changed the background to black as part of testing our dev environment. So I'm going to highlight everything and we're going to get rid of that. And we're going to paste what we just copied. Now, when you've pasted this, there's one small change that we need to do. By default, Bootstrap always sets it that Node modules is within SRC. However, in our case, Node modules are in the root directory of our project. So what we need to do is we need to copy this Node modules. So I'm going to copy it. I'm going to hit Control F to open up my find. We're going to click on the arrow to replace. I'm going to paste it in there, but at the beginning, I'm going to add // By doing that, we are going to click on the replace all button and it's going to automatically add that for us. Now with this all done, we're going to hit save and I'm quickly going to explain to you what we are going to do here. First off, we are calling in Bootstrap functions and we are going to manipulate the variables, but we can't manipulate the variables unless we have this functions SCSS. So where it says include any default variables, this is where we are going to include our own custom CSS to override the variables. Another thing, because we are not going to use variables dark, we can definitely get rid of this. Now that that's removed, we are not going to worry about any map overrides. We're going to leave that as is. But one thing we can do, and what we will do, is add a Sass file for our custom classes, which, by the way, we're not going to use a lot, but custom classes will be added right here at the bottom. All right, so with these changes, I'm going to hit save, and within my Sass file, I'm going to right click and we're going to create a new file. So I'm going to click on create new, and we are going to create a custom variable.scss file, as well as create a new one, custom_class. So the custom var SCSS is where we're going to change or modify the variables that Bootstrap is pre-baked with. Custom class, we're going to use that for any type of custom classes that we need to add to physically change anything that we need to change that you can change using the variables of Bootstrap. So with this all done, I'm going to navigate back to my main file and we're going to add custom variables. To do that, we're going to type in add import, open up our quotation marks. I'm just going to add a semicolon at the end, and we're going to hit Control and Spacebar, which will open up Visual Studio Code's IntelliSense. With that done, we are going to select custom var. But one thing with Sass, you don't need to add the actual SCSS at the end, so you don't need to include the actual file extension. So with that done, I'm going to hit Control S to save it. And we're going to do the same for right at the bottom for our custom class. So I'm going to say add import, open up our quotation marks, get a semicolon at the end, hit Control space, and we're going to select custom class.scss and remove the extension. So with that all done, we should be able to run our container and no errors should appear. So in the terminal, I'm going to click and hit the up arrow to get back to our Docker. Before we do that, before I hit enter, I want to go back to my nodes. I want to close this down and we are going to rerun our npm start. Hopefully we don't have any errors. Okay, so in my case, I have one error and it's talking about primary text emphasis dark. This error normally occurs because we did remove the variables dark. So it looks like with the latest update with Bootstrap, it requires that. So we're going to go back and just copy that and we're going to put it back in again. So I'm going to copy it and let's navigate back to our Bootstrap or our Visual Studio Code. And underneath the variables, I'm just going to paste that. We're just going to add a .. hit save, and let's see if this solves the problem. So I'm just going to open up the terminal, give some more space there, and it looks like it solved the problem. So everything is rendering the way it should be, which is good. I'm also going to do the same by navigating to my second terminal, and we're going to hit enter to open up our actual Docker container or running our Docker container. I'm going to click on the link and we're going to open that up in our browser. I'm just going to navigate to my browser and we can see that the dark background we had is not there anymore. I can also see that the text has kind of changed. Now this is because I have a trained eye, but essentially when I go and inspect element, we should be good to go. All right, so now at this point, we have successfully installed Bootstrap into our Visual Studio Code environment. And at this point, I am going to stop our actual container. There's a few extra steps that we also need to do. Same goes for npm start. I'm going to hit Control C and we are going to terminate this job. With that, I'm going to decrease my terminal. And one thing I want to do is just modify my HTML to be able to properly render Bootstrap. To do that, we are navigating back to the browser because there's something that I want to show you, something that's quite important. When you scroll down on the specific page, it gives you a base idea of what you should include in your HTML file. Now, one thing that I want to add, which is very important, especially for mobile and tablet devices, is the actual viewport. So I'm going to copy this to metadata items by hitting Control C. I'm going to navigate back to my Visual Studio, and we're going to drop that within the head. So there we go. We have that. We should be good. So I'm going to hit Control Save, and I want to make sure everything is working. So we're going to start by adding a background color for our HTML website or for our local website here, just to make sure that everything works. To do that, we're going to navigate to Custom Var, and we're going to add an actual variable here. Now, where do we start? How do we do this? Well, the easiest way for me, normally how I like to do it, is I open up the Node modules and we're going to look for Bootstrap. Now, there is a lot of packages and this can be cumbersome, but we're going to open that up, open up SCSS, and we're going to look for underscore variables right here. So I'm going to double click it. I always double click with Visual Studio Code because if you only click once, it doesn't physically attach the tab. So if you go and click somewhere else and open up another tab, it's actually going to replace that one. So always make sure to double click. With this open, we're going to hit Control F and we're going to search for BG. Now, this is the best way to navigate and get anything throughout this large variable document. I'm also going to show you a different way of doing this, but for now, we're just going to do it this way. And we're going to scroll down until we can find the variable for background. So scrolling right here, I can see that I have body BG right here, and that's the one I want to change. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy all of it, and we're going to put this in our custom var. So I'm just going to paste it in here, give a little space here, and I'm going to add a comment and just say base config. All right. One thing to note though is when you modify variables of Bootstrap, you always want to get rid of the default at the end. You never want default at the end or anywhere when you override the variables. All right, so now with body BG right here, I'm just going to change this to red because I just want to test and make sure that everything is working the way it's supposed to. So I'm going to hit save, and in my terminal, I am going to hit npm start to get that to run, as well as run my Docker. So I'm going to hit enter there as well. So I use the up arrow as per usual, and we're going to click on the link to get it to show in the browser. So I'm just going to navigate to the browser, and you can see that red is there. So our base variables is working. Now that everything is working the way it's supposed to, the next step is to configure our variables so it matches the design that we've originally designed in the previous video. By the way, if you haven't seen the video, make sure to check it out. It is a great full course of how you can successfully design a modern website from start to finish. It's a long course, but it's a good, valuable course because I go through a lot of stuff that's going to make you a great designer. All right, so at this point of the video, we are going to look at the design to determine our primary colors, to determine the light colors, to determine the dark colors, and all that good stuff. We're going to do it right now. So again, and I know I've mentioned this a million times, but this design you're seeing right here, it is in the Figma community as well. And it is in the description below, by the way. You can go and fork or duplicate this design, and you can actually work with me throughout this entire course. But what we're going to do now is we're actually going to set up the variables. So let's jump into it. Now, when you open up this design and you scroll in, you're going to notice that it has this army green or off green color, and that's what we're going to use for our primary color. So I'm going to click on this asset, and on the right hand side, you're going to see the colors, but I've already detached this, but it's actually the primary color of this entire design. But in this case, it is this specific color, and we are going to hit Control C and we're going to copy that. So with that copied, we're going to navigate over to our Visual Studio. So I'm just going to navigate over here. Just give me one sec. All right. So when we're over here and we go to our custom variable part where we had BG or body BG red, we're going to get rid of that and we're going to add what we just copied from the design. Now I'm just going to paste it over here. You're going to notice when you copy something from Figma, especially a color, it is not going to copy the actual hashtag, which defines it to be a hexadecimal color. So for now, we're just going to leave it there. I want you to now navigate to variables. And when we're on this page, we need to go and copy the actual primary, secondary, and all that good color. So I'm going to scroll down. It's quite a bit down. and we just got to pass all the colors of Bootstrap, and I'm going to explain to you what these colors are in a second. But what I want to copy is this part right here. It says primary, secondary, stuff like success, info, warning, dark, danger, light, all that good stuff. We're going to take this and we're going to copy it to our actual custom variables. Now, again, when you copy something to the custom variables, we need to get rid of the default. That's something that should never be included. And so we want to make sure we get rid of that. So to get rid of that, we're going to copy everything. We're going to hit Control F. We're going to paste it in there. Make sure the replace part is empty, and we're going to replace all. So on my end, it has the squiggly line. And the reason it has that is because of this. So we're just going to cut it and we're going to put it in to define the primary as that color. I'm also going to add a comment, and I'm going to say that this is the theme colors. Oh, that's uppercase. I don't want that. So theme colors. Perfect. So now we've added it. But you're going to notice that when you hit save, and because we're running Node and because we're running Docker, you're going to notice that it's going to give you an error, and it's going to give you the error of gray 600, because at this stage, it literally doesn't know what the gray and or the green or cyan or yellow, all that is all about. It's going to say, hey, what is this all about? I don't know what you're talking about. So we need to go and grab that from the variables file so that we can actually use it within our custom variables. So this is pretty standard. Now, first and foremost, I'm going to hit Control and Home on the keyboard to get right to the top of the actual variable folder. And we're going to copy all of this. So I don't want to copy that comment, by the way. I don't like their comments. No offense. All right, so now with that done, we're just going to go to line 1. I'm just going to give some space there, and we're going to paste this in. And right top, I'm just going to say Bootstrap default colors. There we go. Perfect. Now, going back to the Control F again, I just want to get rid of all the defaults there. We don't want to override our file with that specific default. All right, so now when we hit save, we'll get closer. We're still gonna get the green error. So we can still see the green error there. That's fine. We're gonna quickly fix that. So to fix that, we're gonna go back and we're gonna look for green. And what I normally do is I take all of this and I copy that as well. So I'm just gonna copy it, go back, and we're just gonna paste it in here. And again, get rid of the default. Perfect. Now you could theoretically get away with this by adding custom colors in here, but I like to stick to Bootstrap as close as possible. So you're going to notice that it compiled and it has no errors. Okay, perfect. So now we have our primary color in there. That is great. So let's navigate back to Figma and let's have a look at what other colors we need to add. Now, this specific design does not really have a secondary color, which is fine. That's pretty normal for modern designs. Modern designs, you usually stick with one primary color. Secondary color, not that much. But one thing I noticed though is we have a light color on this actual asset. And on the right-hand side, I'm just going to copy this. So I'm going to hit Control C. And we're going to navigate back to our Visual Studio and we're going to paste that into the light section. So where it says gray 100, I'm just going to get rid of that. And again, we got to add that little hashtag to say, hey, this is a hex color. So we're going to hit save. And by the way, this sometimes happens to me. I forget that it does take a few seconds for this Sass to compile. So sometimes when you code real fast and you go back and forth and you're like, hey, why is this thing not changing to what I said it? The reason for that is because it takes a few seconds for the actual compiler thingamajiggy to actually do its thing. All right, so now we have our primary color, we've added light. The next thing I want to add is the dark. So when we go back to our design, I just got to click here. It takes me a second to navigate between the things. I want to add a specific dark color. Now, I am using dark throughout this design, and I'm using it specifically on the text itself. So when I click on the text, it says gray 800, which is perfect. And again, this design is specifically designed for Bootstrap. So this part makes it super easy. If your design is not designed for Bootstrap, this can be quite cumbersome because you got to go and change all the variables and all that kind of good stuff. So that's why it is so important to design your designs, or design your website to accommodate that of Bootstrap. All right, so one thing I want to change with dark here, I'm just going to change that to gray 800. All right, perfect. So now at this stage, we've added all our base colors. We can still modify some of these colors, and we're probably going to, because the default success And the default info and specifically default warning, that's too red for me. So we'll definitely change that as we go through this entire course, as we go through this project. All right, so now I am going to go to index.html. And one thing I want to add is just a button to make sure that our colors are properly working. I'm going to type in just a link and I'm going to say href. And we just want to use hash. I'm going to add a class. I'm going to say button primary. And let's say text white. Now, by default, it should be text white, but I'm just going to make sure test. Oh, let's make it proper there. Now, one thing I want to add though, and sometimes you'll get this error, it's one of those things that either it is an error or it's not. When you go back to your Main-Scss, we added API right here. And in some cases, the colors or the primary colors or the buttons don't gel well with API. So I normally replace this. I'm just going to navigate to my browser here real quick. I normally replace that with something else. Now, this is just experience doing this for such a long time. I'm just going to copy this and put it on a new tab. I don't want to get rid of our local instance or our local server there. But I want to go back to this and I want to grab this Bootstrap right here. And we're going to copy that and we're going to replace that API because we're not really going to work with API in this project. In other projects, you might work with it. I'm just going to replace it here. We're just going to do our .. as well. So that goes to the right folder structure. I'm just going to hit save. We're going to give it a second here to reload. And as it's reloading, we can navigate back to our browser and we can see what we actually have done so far. So if I go to our local server and hit refresh, the button is there, but it's not really doing anything. And there we go. When I refreshed it, the button is working. Now, did you see that it took a second? It took a few seconds for our actual compiling to happen. That is normal. That is part of the whole process. And that is part of this environment that we set up. It is compiling and it does everything that we want it to do. All right, so now we have a good looking button. It is super basic at this point. Now we got to look at extra type of variables and we need to look at extra type of things that we need to set because we're going to prepare the environment to start with the actual navigation, which is the fun part. I always love starting with the navigation. I always love putting that all together. So before we do that, one of the key things that I normally like to do is I want to add just the base background color and the base text color, just the basics of what you normally should do when working with Bootstrap. So let's navigate back to variables. By the way, actually, I want to show you something cool as well. When you go to the Bootstrap website, it always shows you the variables at the bottom. So let me explain, let me show you. All right, so when you go to, let's say, forms, for example, and it shows you, hey, this is how forms look like, this is cool. When you scroll right to the bottom, it actually shows you exactly which variables there are available to change. So you don't need to go through the whole process of searching the _variable folder. So for now, we're still going to do it the traditional way. We're still going to search through the variables file. But moving forward after this, we'll definitely start doing both of them. We'll start playing around with both of them. Because sometimes on the website, when you scroll right to the bottom, you don't really find what you're looking for. So you still need to have that experience to navigate through the _variables folder. All right, so we want to change the BG or just the normal color structure for that matter. So I'm just going to search for BG. We're going to search that once or twice. So I'm just going to scroll down because there's a lot that goes on in this folder. All right, so here it is. It is the actual main body settings. So one thing I do want to do is the actual body color. You see that it's set to gray 900. Ours is set to gray 800. So I'm going to copy this guy, go back to our custom var, and I'm just going to add an extra one here. I'm going to say base body settings. Perfect. We're going to paste that in, and then we're going to say gray 800. Again, oh, there's a little mistake there. Yeah, that's going to give us this area at the bottom. All right, again, what are we actually doing here? What is this gray 600, gray 800? What the hell is that all about? So let me explain. Let's go back to the browser here, and I'll explain to you real quick what that is all about. Now, when you navigate to the colors of Bootstrap, you'll notice, and this is why Bootstrap is super powerful, you'll notice all the different colors that Bootstrap has. So you'll see that we have blue, and we have blue 100 to blue 900. That's insane. And the same with indigo, same with purple, same with all of these colors. So you can actually manipulate and use these colors throughout your entire design, throughout your entire project. And I'm going to show you in this video exactly how to do this. So it all comes back to one thing: designing and developing a website to be super lean and super powerful so that we can get that lighthouse to score near to 100%. Now, can you score 100%? That's debatable. But coming back to this, that's what we did right here. We said gray 800, which when you go back to that little scale, you will see exactly that, hey, there's gray 800 right there. That's the color we're going for. All right, so I want to do the same. I just want to go back to variables to see what we have here as well. So we have body BG. Body BG is white. That's fine. I don't want to change that. If I were to work with a light and a dark theme, we'll definitely be able to change those colors as well. So at this stage, we're at a good spot. We've changed a few variables. I've showed you the basics of variables, and it's working the way it should be. By the way, you can also add your own custom colors here on top of primary and secondary. You can add tertiary, you can add whatever you want. And later on in the project, I'm going to show you how to do that. But for now, we have the base up and running. Now, in the next part of this video, in the next section, or in the next video, depending on how you got to this video, we are going to focus on creating that awesome navigation. So let's quickly navigate back to Figma. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. We are going to create not this navigation. I like this navigation where the logo is on the left-hand side and the actual menu is in the middle and our call to action buttons on the right-hand side. I don't like this background. We're going to use this background. So it's going to be a mix match of all of them.